Happy New Year, Steve.
Hello, Melanie. Happy New Year. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Pretty
Good.
good.
Good. How are you feeling about now that we're in 2021?
Well, before when we were in 2020, I used to say to myself, 2021, it has a nice ring to it, right? And so
Yeah.
by the time 2021 came about, I was pretty excited about it. But I think in the last week, I've sort of been disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got off to a rough start, hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a continuation.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, in some ways, it doesn't feel like we shifted to a new year at all. In
No,
some ways,
no,
it doesn't feel like a new beginning.
no, right? And I purposely really wanted to focus on all the neat things that are going to happen in 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, and like you and I were saying, I mean, it's almost going to be a year of the pandemic, and all of us
Yeah.
will have gone through a pandemic birthday or a quarantined birthday.
Yes, you're right. We have actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1 year out of our life has been sort of, reshuffled and reorganized.
Yes, and isn't it interesting that from now on we'll be marking time based on whether it was before pre-pandemic or since the pandemic. Isn't that funny? It's
Yeah.
been so important and intrusive in our lives that it'll become something that we will remember,
Yeah.
the events of our lives against.
Oh, yeah. Somebody will create a phrase for that, right? And we'll hear it all the time.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, that's right. And so, whatever people are feeling about this new year, whether people are feeling hopeful, I know many people who are feeling hopeful because of the vaccine, and they're hopeful in the immunization and how that will hopefully bring us back to health and togetherness and to feelings of safety and a little bit of maybe a new normal. But there's also a lot of people who are still feeling apprehensive, me myself included,
Oh, yeah.
about this
Yes.
new year. And like you said, especially after last week with, just continuing again the upheaval that we saw in 2020. Just feels, there's it's sometimes hard to be optimistic because the problems just keep presenting themselves.
Yeah. And I think you're always looking for something that's familiar, right? That's going to make you feel comfortable. And to be
Yes,
quite honest, nothing is really familiar. Everything has changed completely,
so true.
right? So,
And for some folks like me, worrying about what else is going to change, what else is going to be transformed and out of my control. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So one thing that I thought about with this year, this 2020 that we've just been through, is what Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, said thousands of years ago, that change is the only constant in life. And we've been called so many times in the last year in particular to just keep adapting and tolerating and learning and accepting and growing with the changes that have been brought into our world and into our life. And it has been a hard year as a result. Us humans
Yeah.
are really good at adapting and thriving and changing and transforming and making things work, but we get tired. It's hard to do that over the long haul.
Yeah. And we've, I think I think that's one of the real admirable traits we have as Canadians. I'm sure it happens in the world, but for Canadians, we're very good at saying, okay, we'll make do with what we have
Yep.
and try to be positive about that. And I think we really, this time we've made a really, really strong attempt, right? To be positive, to look at the benefits, that things that are happening in our lives, but it's starting to wear and tear. And I think one of the problems is that we don't have any control, right? It's out of our control, this whole scenario that's happening,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of always sort of um, waiting to see what's going to happen next so you can adjust to it.
Mhm. And having
For
that,
so for me, that adds stress to me.
yeah, I was going to say, having that lack of control, even the perceived lack of control. So thinking that we don't have control in certain areas of our life will affect our mental health. We can't
Yeah,
stay mentally healthy when we don't have a sense of control over our own daily lives or our own future destiny. Yeah.
yeah,
And I've had people talk to me about how this pandemic, these changes, quarantining, restrictions may continue to happen for the next year, even into the fall.
Yes.
And
Oh, yeah.
I have found myself really struggling with that because I struggle with the anxiety that comes up for me because I wonder, how am I going to do that? How am I going to survive? What am I going to do? Where am I going to get the resources and the support that I need to go through yet another 6, 8, 12 months of this?
Yeah.
And
No, I totally agree.
yeah, and when I was struggling with that, Steve, what came to me was a saying that I remember from when I was very young. My mom taught me this: one day at a time. And I
Yes.
started leaning into that, looking at how can I focus on today, what I can do today, the resources I have today, my knowledge for today, the energy I have for today. How can I focus on today and let tomorrow worry about itself? Or, when I get there, I'll work on that day. So taking one day at a time.
The time. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's actually a good idea. I know for me, when I get stressed, that's the first thing I do is look around to see what I have control of right now that I can influence. And
Nice.
I think, not having a good idea what's happening, in the future, even in the next 2 weeks,
Yeah.
I think is really starting to wear on people because people just want to get on with their lives and live.
Yes.
Right. So we can't, if you think about it, it's really stressful because none of us can make any plans about our lives.
I know.
Right. I mean, I think of, a lot of my son knows friends that are graduating from high school and supposed to go to university. I'm thinking
Yeah.
their whole life right now is on hold because you don't know. You haven't the faintest idea.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
That must be really disheartening for a lot of people.
Yes, it is. Even something as simple as having a birthday. I have a birthday this month. And for a few weeks, people were asking me, well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to be able to go to a restaurant. I don't know if I'm going
Yeah.
to be able to go for a walk outside with my friends. I don't know if anything. So, I didn't know until, what was it? The end of last week. Okay, I guess I'm not going to a restaurant. I guess I am going to
Yeah.
just have a Zoom party with my friends,
Yeah.
and not being able to even control what I get to do for my birthday.
I know. I know. And so I think that adds to our stress.
Absolutely. It adds to our sense of, helplessness. And helplessness can be so taxing on our mental health, just feeling like we don't even know what to do, let alone be able to make something happen for ourselves or for the people that we
Yeah.
love.
I think it also affects your physical health too, because, I find, that if I think too much of the future, I end up not doing anything that day as far as physical activity. So,
Yes.
I've made just a kind of a personal vow that every day I'm going to have to be physically doing something.
Yes. And that's something that we can all control is
Yeah.
being physical, going out and taking a walk when we have these Chinooks,
Yeah.
even just, the other day I went out into a forest and I smelled the beauty of the spruce trees and it smelled like Christmas to me. And, just being able to absorb that scent in the air and be one with the trees around me. Like it was so beautiful. And you're right. That's really one of the best things I can control right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, so, I think we need to really focus on that stuff too. And we need to very consciously say, no, our mental health right now is we need to pay particular attention to physically, emotionally, mentally. I think we're under a lot of duress here, right?
Yeah. Well, and
It's that
here's the
age of
problem.
uncertainty, right? The age of Aquarius, if you remember from the old days.
Yeah.
That song, right? It's back in those days it was exciting, but after a while it's not exciting anymore. It's
Yeah.
become wearing.
Yeah. Well, and here's the problem, right? Is that there is going to be a vaccine. There is a vaccine for COVID-19, and eventually, many people. I'm not. Yeah, many people, whoever choose to get it, will get it. But there isn't a vaccine for mental health. And so
No.
after this, during this, but also after this. I really believe that mental health will be our number one priority. We'll have COVID-19, fairly settled, but our mental health will need some attention
Oh, I
worldwide, I
totally
believe.
agree. I think so too. Yeah.
So doing stuff now to really be gentle with ourselves, nurture our mental health, but also our physical health will do a long ways for getting through this worldwide trauma much healthier.
Yeah.
And I also want to put out there that, like I feel most comfortable taking one day at a time. But there might be some folks who can take 1 week at a time or 1 month at a time. And so whatever works for you, and if thinking about the COVID-19 being around until fall doesn't stress you out, well, then that's okay. It's just, I guess what I'm suggesting or encouraging people to do is just bring back the timelines to allow the timeline to be within whatever amount you feel most comfortable with.
Yeah.
And that can
Yeah.
be different for every different person.
Yeah, and I think it really isn't it really about how much control you have in your life,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's on a daily basis or a weekly basis or a monthly basis, right? You really just focus on what you can influence. That's the expression I use is what can I influence in my life right now
Yeah.
to help me get over this? What is it that I can do?
That's right. Yeah. It also has something to do with like a bit with personality and how much tolerance people have for change. I have a very small tolerance for change. So one day feels good for me. But somebody who has a bigger tolerance for change might be able to say, you know what, I can think of this coronavirus pandemic happening for another 3 months and that doesn't bother me. And just to kind of summarize, I just want to talk a little bit about why this is important. Um, the coping strategy of focusing on a specific smaller time amount to go through, to survive through, is important because it focuses, like you said, on what we can control, which is the present. It also helps us with coping with stress in small, manageable amounts, as opposed to being overwhelmed by stress to the point of not being able to use our coping strategies at all. It helps us to avoid catastrophizing or a fortune telling. So trying to predict what the future holds and, worst case scenario going to the worst case scenario, thinking about how terrible it can be. It allows us to prevent ourselves from doing that. And it also helps us to feel confident and competent with using today's energy, today's resources on getting through today. It helps us to have that sense of success. Aha, I achieved today. I got through it. Now I'll worry about tomorrow.
Yeah, and you know what? You said something I never thought of, but really, it's our ability to actually influence ourselves and how we think about things too, right? So,
Yeah.
thinking of the long-term future, quite frankly, I'm not that creative as I used to be, right? So I think thinking about the long-term future would increase one's anxiety because our future is so totally unknown.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have any control over it whatsoever. So it's almost like a nothing out there.
Yeah.
And so I when you said that, I thought, yeah, I can really see that because before everyone was kind of predicting on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah. That's right.
Now it's that amount of time is increased, right? I'm starting to think that we might be doing this till September.
Right. Yes.
And that to me is more frightening, right? Is how is my life going to look like 6 months from now?
Mm-hmm.
You just can't
Yeah.
imagine, can you?
No, no. And I think the more time that goes on with this pandemic and the restrictions
Uh,
being increased and then decreased and changed,
yeah,
we just have less and less ability to know, to even have a sense of what's coming up for
yeah.
us,
No,
which
I
can be
totally agree.
very unnerving for a lot of people.
Yeah, I try, and because people want to have control, right? And you can't because you don't know what's going to happen, right? And so, yeah, no, I think you really hit on a good point.
Yeah, thank you.
Right? We're predicting something that's going to happen and it's frightening, right? Overwhelming to even think about that.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah. So,
So, how do we do this? How do we focus on one day at a time? How do we focus on the moment? We're not going to do a mindfulness today, but I'm going to, I just want to suggest that when you're doing everyday things, when you're eating lunch or when you're walking, out, for example, I'm working from home today. I'll be walking out to the mailbox later on today. Just taking in, I'm going to focus on one sense. I'm going to focus on the smell today. So just
Mhm. Mhm.
taking in the smell of whatever is around you at any given time. So I've got some, lemon juice from my fridge, and people might put it on their salad for lunch, or they might put it in a little bit of water to perk up their water, and just taking that moment to just smell it, and to just think about the smell and what does it remind you of. You might think about, lemonade in the summer when you were with your grandma the last time, or it might bring you to a totally different memory, but it'll allow you to take that moment of visualizing, your present, or visualizing a positive memory, which can give your mind a bit of a break. You-
Yeah, it really breaks up that train of thought.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
this morning I noticed when I took the girls out for a walk, it was still dark, but there's a very strong wind coming from the west and it was very moist.
ah,
I could feel that, right? You know how it feels on your skin. And I thought, okay, how nice is that to feel that in January, right? So we are kind of lucky that way that our January's been really nice, right? And yeah, and you mentioned smelling the pine trees when you're going for walks, and the memories that brings back, right? It's that grounding feeling you get when you smell the pine.
yeah, yeah,
That's a constant, right? You know that smell.
yeah. That's it's a familiarity, and you were
Yeah.
saying before that right now in our world, there's not a lot of familiarity. And so
No.
bringing ourselves back to that sense of familiarity, that sense of times when things were a little easier, it can really be comforting to our soul and to our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I love how, you could have taken your dogs for a walk this morning and not even remembered the journey. You could have been so full of your worries and your stress that you might not have paid attention to anything, but here you are paying attention to that wind. Not only the wind, it's like the wind in terms of how it feels, but also the qualities of the wind. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
No, 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 that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's so important to think of those moments on a daily basis, right? Exactly what you're doing.
Taking control and then allowing the abstract to become concrete, and
Yeah.
really, being in our moment in such a way that it gives us a knowledge and an awareness and a sense of who we are, grounded in right now. We are still here. We are survivors. We are getting through this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to do the best we could. And I think actually everyone's doing a pretty good job.
Yes, absolutely.
We should give ourselves a pat in the back, right? We're pretty resilient.
We
So
have done phenomenal to get through how many months that we've already gotten through.
yeah, since March.
Yeah. And right through to the new year, here we are in 2021, continuing to keep going
Yeah.
one day at a time.
Yeah. So I'm kind of thinking that every day there's more sunlight, right? The days get longer. They're also going to get better.
Love that. That is an amazing thing to focus
Right?
on.
Yeah. So every day the sun's going to be out longer and longer.
Yes.
So we can
Thank
do
you
this.
for that.
Kind of feels like we're at the end of the tunnel almost, right? You could see the light.
Yeah. Summer was such a gift during the pandemic last year that, like you said, here we are, we're heading towards another summer, and that will be yet another gift to us this
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Love that. Thanks for that, Steve. I never thought about that. I love that. The sun is going to be with us for longer and longer every day from now until the fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for joining me today, Steve.
Oh, you're welcome, Melanie. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you too. Have a great week, and have a enjoy your many moments of being present and grounded to today.
All right.
Happy New
Okay.
Year.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care. Bye bye.